Tonight, the politics of war, conflicting visions over the future of Canada's military might.
We will reinvest in building a leaner, more agile, and better equipped military.
What the Liberals plan to scrap, what the Conservatives think about it.
I don't know where he's getting his information.
As the leaders battle over the bottom line.
Harper has the worst economic growth record since the Great Depression.
Celebrities take aim at BC's wolf cull.
If we need her help on our twerking policy in the future, perhaps we can go to her.
But all that star power isn't making this provincial leader bite. Plus, national pride on the big screen.
This is an incredible honor, and even better that we're all Canadian.
The awards, deals, and the buzz as the Toronto Film Festival wraps up.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Good evening. With less than a month to go before Election Day, the Liberal campaign shifted focus today to the future of Canada's military. Party leader Justin Trudeau says he will cancel the Conservative government's controversial plan to buy F-35 stealth fighter jets and open bidding for a less expensive warplane. Trudeau says he'll pour the savings into the Navy. But the Conservative leader says Trudeau's plan just won't fly. CTV's Laurie Graham has more on day 50 of the 78-day campaign.
A lone Coast Guard vessel cruised the Halifax harbour today. But if the Liberals win, these waters and Canada's entire coast could get a lot busier.
We are committed to that initial promise, making sure that there's at least 6 ships go through the Halifax shipyards. That's what we mean by keeping our promises.
What Canada doesn't need, leader Justin Trudeau told the Halifax crowd, is F-35 stealth fighters. Under the Conservative government, the planes would have cost taxpayers $44 billion over the lifetime of the aircraft. But after a series of cost overruns and performance problems, the Prime Minister delayed the decision to buy in. Trudeau says he will still replace Canada's aging CF-18s, but with cheaper planes that serve Canada's needs.
We need an aircraft that's going to meet Canada's #1 priority, which is defending North American airspace.
I don't know where he's getting his information.
Conservative leader Stephen Harper says Trudeau's plan will diminish Canada's military role around the world.
We are not going to abandon our fight against ISIS, not going to abandon our allies, not going to abandon people in the region, not going to abandon that kind of capacity in our Air Force, and we are not going to abandon our domestic aerospace industry.
NDP leader Tom Mulcair says he too will scrap the F-35 program.
An NDP government would start the process over, make sure we define what we need for our military, and then we go to the lowest conforming bidder that has the product that meets our needs.
Trudeau says there is no cost to Canada getting out of the F-35 program, but some experts say while opting out will save money, Canada could still pay a price.
If you go another route, you're probably going to lose at least some of that degree to operate seamlessly with the United States and some of our other key allies.
Trudeau says he wants a leaner, more agile military, and he intends to reduce defense administration. He wouldn't say whether that meant future layoffs, but later in a one-on-one interview, he did tell CTV Atlantic the plan would be to reduce military consultants only. Sandy.
All right, thank you, Laurie. CTV's Laurie Graham in Mount Pearl. And while the leaders debate the future of the military, we have new details tonight about the Conservative government's current plan to overhaul the Navy and build a multi-billion-dollar new fleet of frigates and destroyers. Well, documents obtained by CTV News suggest the plan is in serious trouble. CTV's Mercedes Stevenson joins us now from Ottawa with the exclusive details. Mercedes, what do you have for us?
Sandy, the largest military procurement in Canadian history is sailing into rough seas, raising red flags about the plan to replace Canada's warships. Internal government documents reveal a series of potential pitfalls, including running over budget, behind schedule, lacking skilled manpower, and producing inadequate capabilities, all assessed as very high risk. The documents warn there is a risk the project may be unable to deliver the optimal number of ships with the capabilities necessary to meet operational requirements, and that this may lead to the Navy's inability to deliver operational effect and/or a failed procurement. With a $26 billion price tag, the stakes couldn't be higher. It is considered the crown jewel of the government's much-touted national shipbuilding strategy. Sources say that with rising costs and procurement delays, the Navy won't be able to afford the 15 ships it was promised. If the project fails to deliver enough ships on time, there are serious consequences. Canada would lack the warships needed to protect both coasts and engage in international operations like intercepting drug smugglers or terrorists in the open seas. In the meantime, Canada's Navy continues to struggle with already rusting ships and tired crews. Sandy?
Mercedes, thank you for this. CTV's Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa for us tonight. Well, the Conservative campaign rolled into Windsor, Ontario today, where leader Stephen Harper promised more money for the manufacturing sector as laid-off auto workers protested outside. Harper was asked to clarify recent comments that the auto industry may not like the outcome of Pacific Rim trade talks. As CTV's Richard Madden reports, his answer did nothing to ease the fears.
Conservative leader Stephen Harper promised help for the manufacturing sector in a city hit hard by outsourcing and factory closures.
And our economy is also fragile. It needs careful management. It needs careful protection.
But Harper's promised $100 million innovation fund wouldn't be available until 2017. Too late for these auto workers who've seen their jobs disappear.
Stephen Harper's got to go. We had a plant here, GM, that had thousands of workers. It's gone. Where was he then? And now he comes now at election time to ask for our vote. That's a lot of nerve.
And they fear more jobs will vanish if Harper signs the controversial Trans-Pacific Partnership when the closed-door negotiations resume.
He's signing all these free trade agreements that none of us know what's even in them, right? And we find out later on when we start to lose jobs and when wages and stuff go down.
The TPP involves a dozen countries, including Canada, the U.S., Japan, and Australia. It would create the world's largest free trade zone with access to growing economies in the Pacific Rim.
It hasn't been great.
Harper says the benefits would be enormous, but in last week's Globe and Mail Leaders debate, he suggested the industry should brace for concessions.
And what I say to the auto sector in particular, I'm not suggesting they will necessarily like everything that is in that.
Today, more hits. Other industries are also at risk.
In terms of the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, those continue. There's difficult discussions on a whole bunch of sectors.
Canada's auto parts industry would be especially vulnerable when exposed to cheaper foreign competition.
There's roughly 80,000 workers there. That's a fair clout. The problem is, you know what? The stakes for the Trans-Pacific Partnership are absolutely massive.
The Liberals support the deal, but blast the government's secret negotiations, concerns echoed by the NDP.
And when I hear him say that the auto parts sector might not be happy with the results of the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiation, which is taking place right in the middle of an election campaign, which is a problem in and of itself.
Now, trade negotiations are set to resume in the U.S. next week, but a deal isn't expected to be reached until after the federal election. Sandy.
CTV's Richard Madden. Thank you, Richard. The Americans are getting ready to welcome Pope Francis to Washington, where he's expected to call for a further thaw in relations between the U.S. and Cuba. And that is where the first Latin American pope was again today, on day 2 of an historic visit to the Caribbean island. Music, cheering crowds, and a celebration of Mass at Havana's Revolution Square. In his homily, Francis urged Cubans to care for each other out of a sense of service, not ideology. And he had a private conversation with ailing former President Fidel Castro. The pontiff will also address the UN General Assembly in New York. His visit to the U.S. comes at a time when religion has been injected into the presidential campaign, and it's getting ugly. The controversy was touched off by Republican contender Donald Trump and some of his supporters making inflammatory comments about Muslims, even using words like terrorist. Now one of Trump's rivals is under fire for his stand on the place of Muslims in American society. CTV's Joy Malbon now on a darker side of the U.S. political debate.
Donald Trump will say just about anything.
I brought my Bible.
What he won't say, and refuses to, is condemn a supporter's offensive attack on Muslims.
Problem in this country, it's called Muslims. We know our current president is one. You know he's not even an American.
Doubling down on the talk shows, Trump still won't concede President Obama is an American and a Christian.
Can you imagine supporting or being comfortable if a Muslim ever became president of the United States?
Would I be comfortable? I don't know if we have to address it right now.
You said you'd had no problem putting a Muslim in your cabinet.
Some people have said it already happened, frankly.
And it's not just the Donald. Another Republican presidential hopeful, Ben Carson, says outright Muslims don't belong in the White House.
I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that.
America's largest Muslim group is demanding Carson withdraw from the race, saying he's not fit to be president. This isn't the script Republicans had hoped for. The party that prided itself as welcoming, inclusive, faces charges of intolerance.
I have friends that are Muslims. They're great people, amazing people. But we certainly do have a problem. I mean, you have a problem throughout the world.
Some Republican candidates have distanced themselves from Trump, while Democratic contenders are calling him out.
He's been trafficking in prejudice and paranoia throughout this campaign.
What Trump is doing is appealing to the baser instincts among us, xenophobia and, frankly, racism.
Trump's colorful talk may finally cost him. After a lackluster debate performance, polls show he's still leading, but slipping in support for the first time. As for Ben Carson, his campaign says he'll try to reach out to the Muslim community. Sandy?
Joy, thank you. CTV's Joy Malbon in Washington. The people of Greece have spoken and re-elected Alexis Tsipras, leader of the leftist Syriza party, in a snap election that now gives him the mandate to steer the beleaguered nation's economic recovery. Tsipras won a decisive victory despite accepting a deeply unpopular Euro bailout deal last month. Tsipras was abandoned by many within his own party after agreeing to deep spending cuts and tax hikes in exchange for 85 billion euros from international creditors. Just off the coast of Greece, more tragedy today. 26 people are missing and feared drowned after their smuggler's boat capsized near the island of Lesbos. In a separate incident, 13 people, including several children, died when their rubber dinghy collided with a Turkish ferry. And more than 4,000 refugees and migrants had to be rescued off the coast of Italy. But surviving the journey at sea is just one challenge. This was a scene in Croatia today. Thousands of desperate migrants storming an already full train. A drop in temperatures is only adding to the urgency to find a new home. And the U.S. Secretary of State announced an increase today in the number of refugees Washington will accept.
We're now going to go up to 85,000 with at least, and I underscore the at least, it is not a ceiling, it's a floor of 10,000 over the next year.
Kerry says all refugees will be screened by the Department of Homeland Security. Coming up, celebrity protest in defense of wolves.
I don't think she really knows enough about our environmental policy to comment.
The BC Premier takes on a famous singer over a controversial cull. And marking the 75th anniversary of a major battle in the skies over Europe.